All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Aarav, and over this past month, I was working on the magic mirror. So I'm going to talk about my project. So what is the purpose of the magic mirror? So the magic mirror was actually a defective monitor that was given to us by the library in 2020. And before I started working on this project, fellow senior Lucy Yao, who was in the class of 2020, had this idea where she envisioned creating a community board where Peddie students can view different information such as the menu feed, athletic events, calendar, and the daily schedule. And although she had this entire idea and she ended up cutting out the frame using the Epilogue Engraver, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, she was unable to actually finish the project. So then in 2021, Shruti, Advaith, Bao, and Daniel restarted this project because that was our first time back in the lab. So they restarted the project, and then in February of 2022, I took over the project. And I'm going to talk a bit about the technical aspects. So the project involves 5 different components, starting with the frame that I talked about that Lucy kind of cut out in the very beginning, and then moving to the front end of styling the data which is being web scraped in the different locations, then moving on to actually using the different web scraping tools with Python scripts in order to grab information from the websites hosted by Peddie. And then we had to use I had to use a JavaScript file to tune and style the text which I'm receiving, because the text is being put into TXT files, and if you're outputting a TXT file, you can't style the text in a TXT file. You're going to have to use some code in order to manipulate that. And then finally, running the project on a live server, which Advaith really helped me out with, and the tech, as well as the tech department. Okay, so the functionality. So currently, the Magic Mirror runs on an Asus computer box, which when installed, I plan on attaching the box behind the computer, or behind the monitor. The monitor refreshes every 20 minutes, and this is so that we can keep the live schedule up to date. So depending on what block it is, it will always be on the correct block, and it will have the live, the 24/7 weather updates as well. And we also have a Flickr feed, which is running at the bottom of the screen, and that goes on a 30-second timer, so it auto scrolls through all of the photos in and out. Also, I wanted to mention that the monitor is going to be assembled or installed at a shoulder level height so that we can actually use the mirror aspect of the screen. So like for when people are going to be walking by through this hallway, we kind of want them to look at themselves in the mirror. I don't know if they need to fix a collar or something. That's kind of the purpose of the mirror. Okay. So now moving on to the front-end design. The front-end design implements a 2-column framework. So if we take a look at the mirror right now, we can see that we have a little partition and then the Peddie menu and the days until graduation, which is separated from the actual feed that we're getting from the Peddie website. And so over here, this is the partition, and then we also have, I also implemented a 4-section grid, which divides the schedule, athletic events, the upcoming events, and then the Flickr feed. And it allowed me to kind of, I had to hard code it because since it's only being applied to one monitor, I had to manually place the objects using the 4-section grid. And as I mentioned before, when I web scraped the information from the different websites on Peddie, I had to run a JavaScript file to kind of style this text. So, which I'll later show you, this is kind of the text that we're getting, and I had to style that using JavaScript. Finally, I reached out to the communications office at Peddie so that I can get the proper font colors and font styles. So over here, I believe this is Brandon Grotesque, and we use I used sans serif, but the actual font that they recommend is Georgia. When I used Georgia, I was unable to actually read the text, so Ms. Wolf suggested maybe changing it back. Oops. Okay. So this is this is kind of what it looks like on the Peddie AM. So over here on the left, we have the Peddie menu, and when we web scrape the information, it outputs it like this. So this is simply a Python script grabbing the RSS feed and then outputting it into a TXT file, which I then later format using keyword optimization. This is the Flickr feed. So okay. This is the Flickr feed. So as I mentioned before, I reached out to Miss O'Neill in the communications office, and she gave me an access code, which I embedded into the code. And one of the problems that I had while doing this is I had to, I wanted the pictures to kind of auto scroll by themselves, but when I embedded this code, it didn't really, it only had one picture, and I'd have to manually click the go next button so that it would rotate the picture. So I ended up using a third-party website to convert that feed, and I had to edit it and manipulate it so that I can get it to auto scroll. So the last aspect of this project was the server. So Advaith really came in clutch, as some would say, and he helped me put the Magic Mirror web page on the live server. This was probably the most time-consuming part of the project, since a lot of the image paths which we had were not displaying properly, and as we would later find out, on our local Windows, when we're putting image paths, it's not case sensitive, so it doesn't really care about the way, if you capitalize PNG or if you lowercase it, it doesn't really care. It will still output it because we're working with Windows. Whereas on a Linux server, all of that stuff matters. And while we struggled a bit, when we reached out to Mr. Bennett and Mr. Viola in the tech department, they pointed that out to us, and we were able to fix that. Another important component of the server is that it runs cron jobs. So cron jobs are scheduled tasks that the website uses in order to, in our case, update the website. So it's running these Python scripts and pulling the new feed every, I believe, every second. So that's the purpose of the cron jobs. I think 2 years ago, our server actually got hacked. So we only, the tech department made it so that we can only access the server on campus or through a VPN, which points to Peddie. And finally, as I mentioned, the image paths are case sensitive. On the side, I also worked with the Epilogue Engraver. So I think this is what Lucy also worked with when engraving the frame, and I got to kind of learn how to use Adobe Illustrator and get some experience with that. So I really appreciated that aspect. Some of the challenges. So throughout the project, I did encounter a lot of challenges. I was in and out of the lab, communicating and reaching out to different people at Peddie. But I think one of the main problems that I had was probably with the server and then actually the web scraping information, because getting RSS feeds through the Python libraries Beautiful Soup 4 and iCalendar was not the easiest task, as you need to specify the different classes that you want to grab information from. So kind of working with that and debugging, that was one of the challenges that I faced throughout this project. Reflections. So I think prior to this project, I didn't really have a lot of experience with Python. So kind of coding in Python, learning about server maintenance, and most importantly, using my resources at Peddie and reaching out to the tech department, the communications office, building services, Mrs. Wolf and Mr. Lua, who are constantly there to help me and support me in my endeavors. So some of the future plans. So I was thinking while working on this project that it would be kind of cool to have like students' birthdays. So I would run a Python script and grab information from my backpack. Although this may have some security concerns, I was thinking that this could maybe be a potential thing to add to the website later on. where you'd say, happy birthday to so-and-so. I also wanted to develop a second magic mirror for the grill, which we're currently working on with Ms. Rodrigue and some of the other people in the head's office. I wanted to create a feed for clubs and sports so that they can upload photos or new updates that they have on their behalf. And finally, maybe just like generate a method to refresh the page so that it's not doing it every 20 minutes and instead right when the block starts, so it's more precise. I just wanted to acknowledge the following people. Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Thank you, Mr. Luo. He's not here right now. And then the tech department, communications office, building services, Advait. Thank you.
The fall team, can you come up?
Yeah.
Guys, everybody who worked on this in the fall, come on up. Because it's kind of important that we see the progression. Okay. So slide up there. And then you could tell them why it says go Peddie Be Blair.
All right, so in November when we were designing the frame, I think they had a time deadline of getting it done before Blair Day. So Shruti, Daniel, Bao, and Advait really worked really hard on getting the magic mirror up and ready for Blair Day. And they designed the entire frame, Go Peddie Be Blair, as well as I think they were able to get the menu feed and the part of the athletics feed before. So that was kind of the purpose of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show the fact that this wasn't a one-term project, right?
Right.
That we kind of iterate and we build on everything that you folks have done as an entire group. Cool.
Thank you.
Great.
Would you like me to keep
Questions?
Right.
Did you ever have like any problems with like having not enough space for things? So like, because you only have so much space on the, even though the broken monitor is bigger than a computer, did you ever have any problems with space constraints, testing it out on your computer or testing it out on the monitor?
Yeah. So that was, I think I mentioned that in one of my, as one of the challenges that I had. So I had to when you're hard coding something, you're hard coding it to a specific screen and screen size, right? So when I was coding on my laptop, I'd code like the major aspects, so such as like the web scraping, and I'd see I would first try and get that to work, and then once I got that to work, I'd push it, and then when I pulled, I'd have to kind of use CSS to move the elements of the page so that it fit the requirements for the magic mirror. I also, not like when you mentioned like size, one of the things I had to do was I had to shrink the I had to use like a 90% resolution. So when you look at the magic mirror, that's not at 100%, so it's 10% less, and that's how I kind of got everything to fit and kind of look the way it does.